Hello to everybody on the internet who's watching right now. This is the Burning Numbers podcast with myself, Josh, and Numayr here. We'll be talking about the education system and kind of what is good or bad, or just kind of our opinions. First of all, we both went through high school together, doing our A levels, doing maths, further maths, and physics. I did economics as my A level and AS, and I think Numayr did as well. Yeah.
I also did economics as my AS.
Yes, yeah, I remember. So he kind of followed me around all the time.
Cool.
Yeah, we had a little group who kind of all did the same subjects as each other, which was good in terms of social. But we was allowed to discuss a lot about how the education system in itself was maybe like set up in a way that benefited us naturally. And so we kind of succeeded, but we saw a lot of people who didn't naturally succeed so well in the education system. So I'm going to pass it over to Numayr. Just going to have a little idea spiral.
So me being a maths and physics based student, I'm currently a uni student doing physics. The education system does benefit me quite well because it tailored to my strengths. But what I saw was a lot of people with a lot more creative minds than me. I'm more of an analytical person. So people that had creative minds, the people that wanted to do the arts, things like that, the education system, in my opinion, did fail them because they had to do subjects that weren't really catering to them, and it was more catering towards me.
And which part of the education system was not catering towards the people who did the arts?
I'd say people who wanted to go into, let's say, drama, right?
Yeah.
Drama was maybe a one GCSE out of the necessary 10 that people had to do.
Yeah.
Right. So they had to focus 10% of their time on that one thing, but that thing was their passion.
Okay. And let's say, for example, physics is and was your passion. Was that not also 10% of your time, one of the subjects?
The one thing I have against that is a lot of subjects revolve around STEM, and what education system tries to do is like bring them together. So maths, physics, even chemistry, those three tie in together. Would you agree, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, they're all mathsy subjects, right?
Yeah. So then those three would, in itself, allow these things, these subjects to come together, and then it would help each other. Each subject would help each other. Whereas subjects, let's say music, drama, art, those subjects were like their own thing. And I wouldn't argue that there were many things that could come together to help that one subject, you know?
Yeah. I think in terms of like the education system, especially like for the majority of people who go into a normal public school, I think most schools, especially in like our area, they're not dedicated to a specific thing. So we both went to Robert Clark, that was named itself and still is the School of Sciences, right? So, but I don't. So you got other schools that are school of this, school of that, but you also have, for example, like a drama school. Like it's pretty much just dedicated to drama, right? So those people that want to go into the drama or the arts or music and things like that, they're going to be more leaning towards that. So I think the education system fails people where they didn't initially get into that or didn't know they wanted to get into that in the first place. And so they now have to then participate in kind of a average selection of
curriculum. Most of the schools that you talk about, like the schools that we went to, were all state schools, right?
Yeah.
A lot of these schools that are like art and drama schools tend to be private. There aren't many grammar, art and drama schools, right?
Right.
So the barrier to entry to get in anyways is insanely hard.
Okay, maybe. I think
because state schools focus on the broader picture rather than where you have the other school, where you have like grammar schools and private schools that kind of focus on certain things.
Yeah, I mean, the way I view it is that the schools for the arts, like drama school, it's almost like you're picking your A levels, what we did, but like really early on. in your
Yeah.
GCSEs. So they're basically an extra 2 years advance on that, which is good because it gives them a head start. But then again, the people that don't know that, or a lot of kids actually grow up and they're not wanting to learn. They don't care. That can come from lots of different reasons, like parents. But if you don't know and care for wanting to do art when you're the age of 14, 15, then you're not going to get into the place that's going to get you to the highest point. Whereas, sorry, and then you would go into the schools like we went to, which kind of favor the others, right? Like us.
The others.
But then for us, I think the way the school is set out is very much like 9 o'clock you start, you go to school and then you do something for an hour and then you go and do something else and then you go do something else and then you go do something else, and it's very much for one type of person. Other people, I don't know, they might not be able to work in the morning so well, and so it doesn't benefit them in that way. They might not be able to do. They may need more one-to-one sessions. Now, we had the opportunity to stay after school with a tutor, but when you've got a schooling system of one teacher to 30 kids, how easy is that to do?
I think we were quite lucky in A levels, the fact that we had such small classes.
Yeah, I mean, we had
So-
four of us, 4 or 5.
In our maths class, there was 4 of us
Yeah, further maths, yeah.
with a guest.
With a guest, depending on whose guest it was, yeah. I think,
No, but-
what about universities? The general universities, yeah.
Universities are like, people say it's similar to school, but in my opinion, it's completely different. For me, it's been completely different. The fact
What
that
way?
I had when I went to remember how we said we had 4 people in our maths class, right?
Yeah.
I went to my physics degree and it was 250 of us.
Right.
So there was no one-to-one time with teachers. There was none of that stuff. It was like the teacher would just talk to you for 2 hours. You'd take it in, and then you go home and study it yourself.
Do you
It's
know
nothing like
much about the online university courses that you can take? Do you know much about them?
no, not much.
Okay, as far as I'm aware, it's pretty much the same thing, but you're just not going to a physical building and lecture halls for the lectures, right? And most of your education now is done through books and suggested reading that you need to do. And you have the same thing on these online courses. So, and the difference in the price is almost like half price for the online courses, right? I think it's like 9,000 versus like 5,500, 6,000, something like that. But so you're going to a lecture in a physical form, and then you're also with 250 people. Don't you feel like you're getting ripped off a bit, that you're not getting that one-to-one, or
Well,
what you're actually
it also
paying?
depends. So when I go to uni, I pay for the degree, but I don't just pay for the degree. I pay for the reputation that comes with the degree.
Okay, I love this. If you're, let's say 5 years down the line, how much does it actually matter after where you get your degree from?
It depends what you're trying to get into. So I know right now, so I have family members that are employers, and I remember it got to a point where they don't look at your CV unless you've gone to a top 10 university.
Right.
They generally just throw it in the bin, because the university you go to gives you an identity at this point, especially in the job market when you first start. So for me, I go to UCL, which is, I'd say, an averagely good university.
Yeah.
So with that, it comes the viewpoint that I am also averagely good.
But then how you get into university at the start is via your application, how good your application is, and depending on your results of your A levels. So if I think as an employer, it's kind of naive in a sense to say that, oh, I'm going to now judge every single person based on what they did when they was 18 years old or before they was 18-year-old.
So, that's your original basis. And then your second basis is what you did at university.
Yeah.
So which is why people join societies. become committee members, your grade, anything below 2.1 is deemed basically a fail at this point.
Yeah.
So those things all come up together to create this image of you to employers.
So do you
where
think
cases,
from that basis, well, first of all, I think that a lot of, you're talking about almost like a very small percentage of the population that are going to go into these high jobs, right? If you're going to be a lawyer in the top firm in the country or the world, then yeah, they're probably going to only look at Harvard, probably going to only look at Oxford and Cambridge, right? And they'll just hire from those people.
Which is what I was about to say. I was like, it doesn't count for everything.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to make your own business, if you wanted to do anything else, like that isn't what I want to do, because I don't think reputation matters as much.
Yeah, and I think for the majority of the population, where they're just going to go, let's just say, for example, you're doing law, you wanted to become a lawyer. For the average solicitor, I don't think they really actually care. And if you've got 3 years experience as a solicitor, but you went to UCL, or you've got no years experience as a solicitor and wanted to be a solicitor, you come to Oxford or Cambridge, then I think the majority of logical employers are going to pick the 3 years experience, right? So,
yeah.
So yeah, I agree. The person from Harvard is going to get a Oxford, Cambridge, whatever, is going to get a better opportunity initially, but take you another year, 2 years, and then you're almost on level par with them, I think.
I don't know. It depends where you look at it in that sense, because the initial opportunity is, so that Cambridge student would go to, like, let's say, like, I don't know, law firm, so it goes to the best law firm in the country.
Yeah.
Whereas the UCL student goes to a more average law firm, let's say. And then them two have the same experience. They've both spent 2 years at a firm.
Yeah.
If you were a solicitor, who would you hire out of them two?
If I was hiring a solicitor, out of those two,
Yes.
obviously, I'd hire the person with the better experience. But
there we go. So you'd hire the Cambridge student.
But yeah, that's on level par. But what I'm saying to you, that if you're competing with experience and you went to UCL and you're competing with somebody who went to Oxford, you just need to get 1 or 2 years experience, and then you're ahead of it. Doesn't, and then it no longer matters where you went to university. You see, with your example, what matters is what job they have, what job they've previously done, not what university they went to. It just so happens that they went to the university.
But now you're changing two aspects of this. Now you're changing two parts of the story, which is the fact that because now you're assuming the Cambridge student does nothing but just does the degree.
No. I'm saying, okay, the general population out there, then we're not all the same age, right? Not everybody is at the same point in life. So if let's say that you got like kids out there that are just taking their A-levels and are applying to university, and they come and ask you, Numayr, should I apply for law at UCL? What would you tell them?
Tell them yes.
Why?
Well, that's because law at UCL is not that. It's pretty good.
Okay, yeah, but then they say to you, okay, but Numayr, all these people from Oxford and Cambridge are just going to take all the good jobs. What would you say?
So then I tell them that they have to work harder than those Cambridge and Oxford students and get experience beforehand.
Get experience
to be on level.
Or when you finish off a university degree, you would then go out and get more work experience and then become better in the field, right? So after a certain amount of time, it doesn't matter where you went to school. It matters about your experience and how well you do as a solicitor.
Yes.
Let's say, for example, you're working as you're stacking shelves, right? It doesn't matter where you went to school, although initially, as a child, they might, when you was younger, they may have picked you more because of that. But the next time you apply for a job, how good was you at stacking shelves? I was amazing compared to somebody who's not stacked shelves up before, right? Or have just studied how to do it, but better than me. I don't think the name of the university really matters at all, and especially after a couple of years.
I'd say it matters. I'd say the main reason it matters is for the initial. It's the initial push. But it depends. It also depends. It's so dependent on what you want to go into, because every field is insanely different. So whereas like for now, I'm looking to go into consulting.
Yeah.
Right. and it's got to the point where I realized that my experience has mattered more. So I'm actually, the way when I apply, I usually put forth my experience first rather than my university.
Yeah.
But if I wanted to go into something like finance or investment banking, that's where reputation matters a lot.
Yeah.
Because I know people go into investment banking and it's all about the way you look.
Yeah.
And how you. So that, and especially investment banking, the first thing you do is the most important thing you do, because that dictates where you want to be in that field.
Of course, yeah,
Especially in
but
the high
everything about a bank and investment banking, you go to just go to your local bank. The idea
Yeah.
of the bank and the building structure has got to be as big as possible to be the most scariest and most impressive building there is, because this is where all the money is, right? So I completely agree. All your images are important. What do you think in terms of the education system that is like missing in the sense of like curriculum, or what they're leaving out of teaching?
I think one of the are we talking about university, sixth form? I mean secondary school. Let's talk about secondary school in this case. I think it's missing out a lot of life skills.
Mm-hmm.
So like let's say personally, I still don't know how tax works.
Yeah. Which part of tax do you mean?
Like I have an idea about like income tax and stuff like that, right?
Yeah.
But do I have a strong basis on how the country's taxes work? I would say no, like in general.
Yeah.
And I think for me, if I want to go learn, I'd have to actually like research it myself.
Yeah.
Whereas this is something that the entire population should know.
Yeah.
And I think it's something that should be taught in schools, but a lot of these things aren't taught in schools.
What do you deem as something that everybody should know? What is a subject that everybody should know? For example, obviously you just said that tax is a subject everybody should know, but what makes it
I'd say something that everyone has to deal with in their lives, daily lives.
Okay.
So taxes is one of them.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say how to deal with finances. Like I think there should be sessions on that, things like that.
Yeah.
Things that will help you sustain your standard of living.
But then your standard of living is kind of dependent on two things: your income and then what you do with the income, right? Your money management.
Yeah.
So I think as human beings, to kind of forcefully have a curriculum where everybody has to learn, there's only so much you can teach in a certain period of time, right? You got 9 to 3, 6 hours a day to teach these kids who probably don't want to actually learn anything. Teach these kids a set amount of stuff. So now, as the question I asked you, you're deciding what you should be learning. So now if we just fill it all with everything like what's important, so taxes, what you just said, adding on top of that health issues and understanding your health and diet and cooking and things like this, right? That would probably take up most of the time. You ain't gonna have time for music, you ain't gonna have time for drama, you ain't gonna have time for the arts, or probably. And then you would actually suggest that, okay, is there any really need to know about how gravity works, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how does that really affect our daily lives? So I guess the outcome of that is you have now decided yourself to go to university and study the science and the physics instead of going to learn about the taxes, right?
Yeah.
So
but then it goes to this idea that you're assuming that this takes it's not an in-depth thing. It doesn't take that much time. It's maybe 1 hour a week. You know how we had RE, we could have life skill, like an extra subject called life skills.
Yeah.
And then in that extra hour for over the course of 5 years.
Yeah.
Or let's say 3 years, because you have to, it's not compulsory in your GCSEs. Over the course of 3 years for an hour a week, that's around, for a school year being 36 hours, that's like more than 100 hours of learning life skills. So when you say that's sufficient enough for you to learn the necessities of things?
Okay. So what's your suggestion? You are suggesting that we have more of the life skill sessions, right? So we had that one once a week when we was there. Do you think there should be more?
Yeah. No, I think one hour a week, like how you have citizenship, geography, history, RE, something like you can have once a week. You could have like, well, life skills maybe isn't the best word for it and name for it, but yeah, you know what I'm saying.
Okay, so who determines that? Because okay, let's say you have it's going to be touchy here. Let's say you have a priest, right? And the priest believes, I'm not saying the priests do believe this, but let's just say, for example, the priest believes that the most important thing in life is for you to understand your religion and understand how God, your relationship with God, and how best to serve Him, right? Who now decides what is the most important thing? I know we already have the people who choose the curriculum, and therefore that's kind of the obvious thing.
I think that is definitely that, but that's the answer though. It's the people who choose the curriculum, because if let's say if a priest says that like the most important thing is to know your religion, the issue that I'd have with that is that we live in a secular country, and the basis of that is the fact that politics and religion are split apart.
So you think it's less important to study religion because of the country that we're in?
Yes, because I think depending on what country you're in depends on how your education system works. So let's say so my ethnicity is Pakistan.
Yeah.
And Pakistan is an Islamic state. And in Pakistan, in the education system in Pakistan, they do have to learn about Islam. It's part of the core education system.
Yeah.
But that's because that country chose not to be secular, and that country chose to have an Islamic state.
Yeah.
But we're in a country in the UK that is secular and is chosen to be secular. So if you've chosen to be secular, I don't think it's a good idea to impose a religion in a secular society. You should.
Okay.
That is something for families, and if families want to be religious, that they have full freedom, but it's not something that should be part of politics.
It should be part of the education system.
Education system. Sorry. Yeah.
I disagree on a sense of religion. I mean, you know that I'm not religious in the sense of believing in a God in itself, but I think it's so important. Religion takes up so much culture and so much identity for a lot of people that if you was to then abandon the whole idea of religion, then you're kind of taking away the understanding of people.
No, I think religious studies is a good thing. Religious education is a good thing, but I don't think it should be a core thing.
Like, I don't think we learn enough religious studies. You know, I mean, I did it for GCSEs. I chose it as one of the subjects, right? And we learn about.
It was compulsory for me.
Really?
Yeah, my school did it when I was in secondary school. They did it you have to do RE.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So obviously, you know that we did I don't know about in depth, but I mean, it's not like Bible studies, but understanding about Christianity, understanding about Islam, understanding about some stuff. But the core principles behind a lot of the religious texts and things like that is just about like loving each other and caring and like just the priorities in life that I think, like kind of what we touched on in a previous episode, like instant gratification, loads of people just miss out on these whole ideas that through religious texts, through kind of any moral text throughout history that says, oh, you shouldn't care what other people have, don't buy random shit just because whatever, right? It says that you shouldn't use debt in the majority of religious texts, and in anyone who's fairly intelligent, it says love thy neighbor, it says care about people, it says treat others how you want to be treated. These are all just like foundational ideas, but then if you have a lack of understanding of other people, then you may not kind of think that you have the same values, where really everybody's got the same values.
I'd say that the issue I have with religious studies isn't the fact that it isn't in depth. It's that for some reason, especially like the only two religions I learned of were Islam and Christianity.
Yeah. Do you think that's wrong?
And I think that is very selective, like, because especially the fact that they're both Abrahamic religions, right? Yep. Which means that they both generally have the core views being the same.
Yeah.
But like, I think it was too far depth into two certain religions whereas if you learn the basis of most religions, and I think you can have a choice to move to like, if you learn the basis of most religions, not most religions because there's like hundreds of them.
Yeah.
But let's say the majority, like the majority religious population, and what religions they use. Bruv. If you were able to go look into those, and then you were allowed to dive deeper into those, if you so chose.
Sorry, I'm still on the possessor religious part. Go on.
I think you understand what I'm trying to get to here, right?
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Just before we end, I want to kind of touch on the topic. You remember that video that we watched quite a long time ago by, I think the guy could name Prince or ZA
Prince
or something?
EA.
Yeah. He made a video that very intelligently titled "I'm suing the schooling system," right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and it talked about lots of different things, like how everything in society is changing. However, the schooling system is not. It still looks the same, still teaching pretty much the same stuff, blah, blah, blah. What do you think to like that video and the information that gave, or ideas?
He touched on really good points, but I think he failed to understand the fact that the education system, there's literally hours and upon hours of work going into how best to change the education system. Like, what's the best ways of teaching, the ways of learning. Like, I think he really failed to look onto that, but he took the surface level of things.
Yeah.
And used that to create his point. Whereas,
so do you think the way that we are being taught is fair and the best method?
It depends where you're looking at it from, because it's the best if you look at society as a whole, but if you look at people individually, maybe it's not the best way. But then you hit to the idea, which is, do we have the resources to touch every, like, let's say touch every kid? Like, the one thing I majorly agree on with him, our teachers are insanely underpaid.
Yeah, of course. But the problem is they society doesn't like value education in a sense as much as like other things. For example, football players, they get paid so much because they are a form of entertainment, right? They're just actors on a pitch doing something, right? So the fact that so many people watch that and care so much about football and follow it like almost like its own bloody religion or cult.
Mm-hmm.
So these football players are getting so much money, whereas teachers, they're just teaching the 30 kids. I mean, teachers are like profoundly one of the most important parts of society, right?
Yeah.
But still, the value that they provide is less than a football player, and they get paid based on the value.
But the one thing is, football is a it's a business, and it's a successful business, because football is probably one of the only sports in the world that is able to create that much revenue. Like, there's NFL, NBA, things like that also are on the same level. But the teaching generally is monitored by the Department of Education. So it's a governmental, it's a public policy.
Yeah.
So what happens is, it's like the government deem the idea of teaching to be not as important as other sides of things. They've deemed teachers to be valued at £40,000 a year.
Yeah, but
because
then
they do generally choose the wage. Because if you go to a private school teachers are paid quite a bit of money.
Of course, yeah, but in the way you've explained about it not being run like a business, in a sense, it kind of is, and like the more successful it is, the more funding it gets, and so forth. But in terms of the teachers' pay, if you have, well, first of all, you can increase the teachers' pay by the promotions, right? It's not just like the end of the world, but
yeah,
I kind of forgot where I was going with this.
Teachers' pay, not the end of the world.
Yeah, I remember my last sentence.
Promotions.
Value. I think it's gone, man.
So is it gone out of the head?
It's completely gone.
It's fine.
I wasn't
But I
taught how
think
to retrieve my memories.
life skills, man. 1 hour a week, trust me.
Yeah, what would you say? You were saying,
I was saying that
run like, oh yeah. Okay, so
run like a business.
yeah, so schools are not run like a business in that sense. Also because they're not able to control how we're charged, because education is deemed as like a right to everybody, and therefore everybody should be provided with a basic level of education. You can't now say that, oh, we're going to give everybody this commodity, for example, but this commodity is worth a shit ton of money. And so therefore you put down the value of education by itself by making it kind of free to everybody, right?
Yeah.
And human psychology in itself, because it's free, less desirable, blah blah blah, right? Also not helping. So do you think it's a good idea to make everything, I mean, I don't think it's a good idea to make everything private sector, because then everybody's going to start getting charged, and then lots of people who don't value education are not going to get educated, and then you got a whole issue like a lot of other countries. But
do I think it should be more privatized? And no.
I don't think teachers can get paid more.
I think it's a choice of, I think in my head, I think it's a choice of the government if they want to be paid more or not.
Of course, yeah. But if it's I mean, technically, we are paying for our education, pay it through like taxes, right? And so we have nobody wants to pay more taxes. Everybody wants teachers to get paid more. You know, nobody's going to be like, okay, let's let teachers have a pay rise. Everybody gets paid more. I'm going to pay for it. Please take my money. You know, nobody's going to do that.
Or you could be like, you see there's a percentage of like government tax money, right?
Yeah.
And where that goes to. So it goes to just general maintenance of the country. Public sectors like the NHS, teachers, military. Surely I think they've put teachers near the bottom of that priority list.
Yeah.
And I think in my head they could go higher in the priority list of where they should be. Because I think, again, Prince EA said it well. It's like teachers like do save lives in a way.
Yeah.
Because they are such a fundamental part of the society. They give students inspiration to do. A good teacher will give a student inspiration to do anything they want.
Yeah.
And everyone remembers the good teachers in their life, right?
Yeah, of course.
So I think the government have prioritized it less than usual, less than what they should. And that's my opinion on it.
What about all the dropouts that become billionaires? All the dropouts that become billionaires. Do you think that's almost like an idea that maybe the education system's kind of wrong? That the people that are most, or not most successful, but in a way by society most successful, those people are actually people that went at this education system that we deem so incredibly awesome?
Well, when it comes to education dropouts, they were in education until they had an idea. If you agree with me on that one, right? Like,
I mean, I don't think
I feel like they were in education until they had an idea.
Okay, go on, keep going.
And then once they had the idea, they had motivation. They had a clear sense of where they wanted to be, where they wanted to go, and they went in that direction. And they took the skills that they needed to from education.
See, I think a lot of these high school dropouts wasn't the case of, oh, I don't think I need this education anymore. You know, I'm going to go do something better with my life. I think it was more of the case of, you know, school's not really working for me. I'm not hitting the grades. I'm going to go and do something else because it's not helping me. And therefore, now I'm in a situation where I have no education, and all the employers look for a basic level of education, maths, English, blah, 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 right? So I can barely get a job. So how am I going to earn money? I need to find out how to earn money. And as soon as somebody's put into the position where they have no income, but they need to earn money because they need to survive, people get real creative on how to make money, right?
That's true, yeah.
So these people that left it had the creativity to earn money, then went and
Yeah.
learned how to earn money and build a business, and then they built the business and now they're billionaires, which is another thing that I think maybe is wrong with the education system. The creativity is almost like completely broken. We're dumbed down from individuals, I think. I felt like it was at school. We're dumbed down to not individuals, but more like robotics. We're learning this, we're learning that, we're learning this. You look this way, you think this way, you speak this way. You're not allowed to say a lot of shit. I can't fucking say anything, right? So without the creativity and the allowing your mind to do these things, plus without the education of a lot of things like taxes, building a business, all sorts of stuff, I think it fails in a lot of areas, right?
It does fit in a lot of areas. It doesn't, like that's why I said, it doesn't cater to everyone at all.
Yeah. So what would you give at 10 out of 10 for the education system in the UK?
I'd give it a 7.
7.
A 7.
One last reason?
Because after your core education, I think there are a lot of different opportunities that people can take.
Yep.
So after that, like you can go into apprenticeships, vocational courses, academic courses, things like
Yep.
that. So you have a lot of sectors to go into afterwards.
Yeah.
Which is why I'd give it a 7.
Yeah.
But I think you don't learn, like you miss out on such important aspects of life inside the core education. So it's not ideal. It's not the ideal education system for me.
Yeah. I think one thing that I took away from the education system, I give it a 6. I think it teaches very well how to be a certain way, right? And think a certain way, which is beneficial for some people to know exactly how the general population is going to think or feel about certain subjects, right? And so it becomes very easy that when you're now different, it's very easy to kind of put yourself away from the crowd, which is good. But yeah, there's loads of things that's kind of left out of the education system. But I think anybody who's not gonna be successful in the education system for whatever reason that you might think, I think obviously just put 100% effort in and take what you can out of it. But also your learning never stops, right? Like you've left high school, you've gone on to do all sorts of stuff. I've left, and I personally believe that I've learned more out of school than I have in school, right? And especially much more useful stuff. And so yeah, books, fucking hooray for books. I love books. I never used to read. I think due to school, I was demotivated to read books. They didn't seem interesting to me. There was nothing that really kind of said, you should read a book because of this. And that reason kept with me, right? So I developed a reason later on. And then that's how I've learned most of the information that I've learned from what I need.
I'd say what's the main thing I learned from school? It was probably, it's weird because I wouldn't say it's anything academic. It's more how to adapt to different situations.
Like what?
But this is the one idea that it's because I went to let's say a fairly average state school.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of different kind of students. There was a lot of social things that went on in school. So you had to learn how to adapt to the situation depending where you were, right?
Yeah.
And I really took that with me when I went to, like, let's say university, and I went to when I got my first job, things like that.
Yeah.
Like I was able to adapt to every situation very well.
So do you think based on that idea, homeschooling is maybe not a good thing? Sorry.
I don't agree with homeschooling at all.
You don't?
I don't.
Okay, we'll leave that for another video because that could get real deep. I'm sure you've got a lot to say and I got a lot to say. That's the Burning Numbers podcast. We'll catch up with you on the next one.